The Patterns High School Science Sequence is a 3-year science course pathway and curriculum aligned to the next generation science standards. The sequence consists of freshman physics, sophomore chemistry, and junior biology courses. Each course utilizes common instructional strategies, real-world phenomena, and engineering design challenges where students are active participants in their learning. The curriculum is a combination of teacher-generated and curated open content materials. Professional development workshops for educators are offered each summer in the Portland metro area.
When we had biology at the sophomore level, so much of biology now is molecular biology, not the traditional, classification type biology that many of us had. And, we were just seeing extremely high failure rates with our students because as soon as we went inside the cell and started talking about chemical reactions, we lost students, and it was hard to pull them out then after that. So we knew that biology was probably not in a great spot at the sophomore year, but also knew that chemistry would have to precede biology then in order for them to be more successful in modern biology. And then, so when we were thinking that chemistry would have to precede biology, then, again, energy storage and transfer, that comes in physics. Need that before you really get into how that's going to work with chemicals breaking, atoms breaking apart and recombining and energy being released or absorbed. So really that seemed to be the most coherent sequence and the one that really makes sense when you really think about the curriculum as a whole and not just as a alphabetical way to organize them.
All the students end up learning a problem-solving approach from physics without having, before, so many people, adults that I hear around, have never taken physics, and so they never got that problem-solving approach.
I would describe the Patterns approach as a student-centered, three-dimensional way of students learning science that emphasizes the scientific practices of engineering, inquiry, and modeling. And then once students do that, then they normally apply that then to an engineering project at the end of the unit. The Patterns approach really typically starts with most investigations where students are taking a wild guess. So an example of that might be, what is the population on the Earth going to be in 2050? So you get a wide variety of answers because they're doing just that, they're guessing. And so from then they break out into different research groups where they're all basically taking a sub-question, and all of those sub-questions are addressing something a little bit different. And I really like that because it really holds students accountable for doing their best work because they might be the only group that's reporting back to the class about that particular research question. So they investigate, they collect data, maybe they do research, and then they come back together to present their findings in a board meeting. And that board meeting is where a lot of the discourse goes on in the group.
Yeah, the information that they're sharing is something that's really important and something that the class needs to be able to make sense of whatever phenomena they're studying. Then after they take that data and they analyze it, come up with some sort of meaning out of it, they usually use that to make some sort of a prediction and to verify see how far off or how close their wild guess was, but also just show that science works, that you can take patterns and make meaning of the world through patterns, find some mathematical pattern, and then make a prediction from that.
What they said for their wild guess with their data-informed prediction, and it goes back to what science really is. We use what we observe and do experimentation and then use that knowledge to make a better prediction. And then when we test it in the end, and then they're like, oh, that's what we predicted. They hit it right on, yeah.
Science is the practical application of mathematics. If we in the science class are using relevance and keeping a rigorous curriculum, but helping support the math skills that they have to have, that's a win-win.
This year we worked with the math teachers to use common language around our curriculum, and we noticed that there was an increase in the math test scores when we used the same language in both classes.
Since there's such a strong emphasis on the mathematical patterns, I think it really helps for students to connect what they're learning in their math classes. It's certainly led to more collaboration between our science and math teachers so that we're communicating in the same way and helping students to learn and grow. But one thing that I've really noticed with students is that they are really able to conceptualize and better able to understand the algorithms that they're using because they're looking at data that they collected. And so they can stand there and know if they should have a y-intercept or not have a y-intercept. I can, tell you about times when light bulbs were going off in my class. Like, I never understood what a y-intercept was, but now that I've collected my own data, I know what it is because I know whether I should have one or not. And so that's been a really important aspect of the patterns approach that's been important to our students.
Well, it helps them also have a better number sense, right? Lots of times in the past, students would come to us and they would calculate an answer and not even know if it was anywhere in the right ballpark. And now they realize relatively quickly, once they're making a data-informed prediction, how far off their original wild guess really was, and how many orders of magnitude different they're really thinking before they actually were able to collect some data and make that data-informed prediction. It's the same type of thing that they're trying to teach them in their ELA classes too, English Language Arts, claim and reasoning. And they have to get evidence from the book that they're reading, quotations, so the evidence that they're using in our classes are usually numbers, right, of some sort, even in biology. But the skills are cross-curricular. For me, the claim evidence reasoning or the writing piece is another area of huge growth that I have observed in students. I always have multiple choice part of my tests at sort of the more proficient level, and then more extended response for the advanced level. I would say that before implementing patterns, I would have at least 75% of short answer or extended answer questions where the answer would be written IDK, I don't know, or just completely left blank. Now, I would say, especially now we have had students in our school who've gone through all 3 years of the sequence. There are very few students who leave every question blank on the extended response. I would say out of 100, maybe 1%, 2% maybe. So the writing, or them feeling like they have the ability to write about the science that they're doing, has increased dramatically. So for me, it's really been a positive experience to observe students becoming more and more comfortable with the practices of scientific discourse, talking to each other as students, recognizing that each one of them has valid points in terms of the data that they have collected, in terms of the conclusions that they're coming to, having the opportunity to ask each other questions and feeling comfortable doing that, not judging a student or a group member based on what they may or may not have done or what another student feels is the validity of that student's data. So having an opportunity for students to actually communicate has become much larger as a result of the teacher practices and things that we're asking students to do. But it empowers the kids, and that's really the most important thing. It gives them the ability to actually use scientific and mathematical terminology to peers, to other adults, and in some of the physics engineering projects, they have an opportunity to actually talk about their project to people who come from the outside, people who they may have never met before. And they feel confident enough to be able to describe what they've done and talk about the math and talk about the basic programming that they've done and really display and honor all the things that they have learned.
I think the biggest change that I have seen with my students at Forest Grove is just the growth in, I can do this. I've had so many students come into my class feeling defeated, feeling like I've never passed a science class, I'm not good at science, why am I here? I mean, I had a student, Miguel, tell me, Mrs. Sika, this is the first day of class, Mrs. Sika, I've never passed a science class. And so I just looked at him and I said, well, this is gonna be the year. And by the end of the year, he had gained 25 points on the life science strand of the Oaks. But more importantly, he learned to believe in himself. And he learned that he could actually do this if he was willing to work hard enough. And so that's, I think, why all of us do this, because we want students to know that science is not the secret club and that we're trying to make it hard or keep them out, that we want to help them unlock the secrets so that they can pursue whatever dreams and goals that they have in their life.
And they use different technologies also. So using spreadsheets, they all of a sudden realized why they needed formulas and being able to write formulas in, because then you didn't have to do the work over and over again. We did a texting and driving unit in freshman physics where they were trying to figure out if you went a certain speed, would you actually hit somebody if you were texting? And they were able to plug in different speeds very easily and have different answers. And all of a sudden they said, wow, that's easy. Yes, Excel spreadsheets or Google spreadsheets make it so much easier for you. And if you understand equations from your math class, that really helps. So I love the integration of technology for the students.
So how has this changed how I run my classroom? First of all, this is a completely student-centered curriculum. It's no longer what we sometimes call the sage on the stage, the all-knowing teacher standing at the front of the room and delivering information to students. That's not at all what these classes are meant to be. And when the patterns approach is implemented, it really turns out to be the students are driving, so to speak, what is happening in the room, because they are the ones who are collecting all the data. These are not canned experiments. Every set of data that they collect is valid.
I love providing the students with an opportunity to be a leader, because you can kind of change the groups up a little bit. And I had this one student who is kind of quiet, kind of B student, and then a couple of the kids who are usually just kind of sitting around, not doing it. If they can get engaged, but they have a harder time with it. And having them, just a group of 3 that day, and looking how to send a digital image across a Slinky. And she was leading them to do it, and they were both all 3 of them were engaged. But the nice thing is they all understood the material at the end, and just to go up to her and say how good of a job she was doing at being a leader. And she really just shone through that. And the other 2 students now kept doing well. So it wasn't just that one group, it stemmed onto the other groups as well. But watching kids learn how to be a leader.
Engineering really is the great equalizer, because students that are not traditionally the best students in class tend to be the outside of the box thinkers and tend to do better in the engineering tasks than the students that like to follow a procedure. And so it's nice to see those roles reversed, because it reminds us that we all have strengths. We all bring something different to the table.
The access to all the curriculum online was amazing, because as a new teacher, I didn't have to start from scratch and develop all my own stuff. And knowing that that I wasn't just doing something I made up, and that I was alone, that it was, I had all these other teachers to help, was amazing. And then I wanted to add one more thing about differentiation, because I really feel like the process of the way we go through the experiments really opens it up for students to go further, but it also helps, it has structure for students who really need it too. Like the research extension questions, they can go into, something else that they wanted to investigate with the concept. And
we actually have our building set where we have one classroom here, another classroom right there with a door in between, which is what they suggested to have for the patterns. And on the day after the test, or maybe a day after that, we will have some kids go for remediation who need to relearn the material and retake. Another group gets to go ahead and do some extension activity, like learn how bright the stars are in the galaxy. It's just fun.
I think for me as an instructor, the biggest shift has been by this regional effort of teachers all across the area of working on this curriculum, that we can make it super relevant to our students. And I think that that's something that was lacking in my teaching before that, because you can't bring that through a textbook. You can only bring that through teachers who know their students and what's going to be important to them. So from projects like biofuels and texting and driving, these are all things that are important to our kids. And so I find that with engineering especially, the engagement is higher than I've probably ever seen in my 16 years of teaching.
Collaboration has been something that I didn't know before moving to Beaverton and starting this patterns physics. I used to be on an island, and now it feels like the work that I do with colleagues at my school, in my district, and then at the OSTA conferences, just that we have a similar context to talk about with patterns, and we can all build on that. So we, with a group of teachers, the work just keeps on getting better and better. We're constantly iterating to improve it. And then that work that we do hopefully gets to other classrooms as well. So it feels like my impact on my teaching impacts my students specifically, but then students in a broader scope. My sphere of influence feels like it's increasing by the work that we do together in patterns physics or patterns approach.
Sometimes our collaboration also, though, is across disciplines. At our last unconference, Matt and Charlotte and I were all in the same session working on claim evidence reasoning. And, Charlotte and I, we basically closed out the year doing the breast cancer case study. And we really kind of took a step back and said, wow, like they have made so many strides, our students have this year, and from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. And I know, Matt, you said the same, lots of victories of being able to actually articulate a claim, substantial evidence, and good reasoning also. I mean, at the beginning of the year, probably just a claim for the most part, is what they were coming in with. So it was great to see that that's something that that they should be working on in all the classes. So by the time they're exiting Charlotte and I in biology now at the end of the sequence, that we feel, yes, we're sending them out of here having a skill that is really going to help you in life, whether you decide to be a scientist or not.
I mean, the fact that this is a regional thing is huge, because I can now go to even my English language arts constructing meaning conference and run into people who are science teachers who are doing patterns, and we can connect on a completely different level about other ways to connect with our students who have who are English language learners, and how can we adapt what we're doing in science to make it accessible to students of every level of English proficiency.
And then being able to collaborate with our own district. So working through the summer and working together as a district, and then helping each other along the way. Sometimes one of us will be farther along than another, and then we can collaborate with them, and they say what's really worked with them, and then we say what hasn't worked with us, and what they could do to modify. So then their next step is to do the same thing we did, but better. See, I've never had a PLC that has worked so seamlessly, divvying up information, divvying up tasks, coming back together to make things so much more relevant to the kids. Right there. So you don't feel like you're on an island, you're working together as a team to do it. Having other teachers from chemistry backgrounds, from biology backgrounds, teaching that freshman physics, I learned things from them about DNA structure and how you're actually using wave frequencies to figure out DNA, and we're teaching that to freshmen very lightly, just to show the contextual nature for it. And it was just neat to watch, not just having physics teachers at the freshman level.
I just wanted to add that I think that at first I thought I would have to give up a lot of my autonomy as a classroom teacher, teaching the same thing as a bunch of other teachers in my building. But it's been amazing. We've had conversations. I'll have a colleague or two in my second period class, and then I'll say, "Oh, you have to make this change before your fourth period," and then they'll make that change, and then I'll get some feedback, and I will literally change it before my sixth period class the next day, or even that day. So the ability to talk about this work together and have a similar context has been extremely fulfilling and so beneficial for my students.
I have to admit, I did not vote for freshmen to have physics first. No way can they handle the physics at the trig level. Okay, we won't put them at the trig level, but would it be integrated science? No, it was not deep enough. And so I didn't really want to teach the freshmen in the first place, but I teach the upper level physics. And so I figured we better go ahead and have me there so we're getting good physics. And it has definitely helped with our school having one of the upper level physics teachers involved into the freshman core. I could make sure the foundations are solid with anybody else that might not be as physics oriented. I can help make sure the concepts are being delved correctly. And every kid comes into the upperclassmen physics with the exact same physics background. Admittedly, I sometimes am more excited about going to my freshman class than my junior class, because the curriculum is just so rich, and the kids are engaged because we're learning about things that are interesting to them. So I'm really trying to revamp this summer. I'm revamping my upper class so it mimics more of the pedagogy from the underclassmen. And I'm excited about it.
Vertically articulate, but also throughout a year increase the rigor. It's just too hard to do singularly. Like as a group we can do that, but singularly there's no way you can differentiate for all of those students, add those skills, and add those supports. You can't do that by yourself. You have to be working with something and working together.
I have never been a physics person, but I can actually say I enjoy physics now.
Yes.
Like I'm a physics person now. And I was scared to, oh my gosh, I have to teach physics because I'm a bio person. So it like seems scary at first, but it's not.
I never even took high school chemistry as a student. So when I taught high school chemistry using the patterns approach was the first time I was in a high school chemistry classroom. That was intimidating, but I learned so much about that, and having the background of having taught the physics class, I knew what touchstones they had, and that made that transition for me much easier.
I love the fact that we started our PLCs together in the summertime. And then we went to a training that was a week long together as a team after knowing the curriculum just a little bit. Then we really got into the curriculum, understood it, and then worked together as a team to see how we wanted to implement it in our own building. But that team bonding, per se, really helped. And it wasn't school-wide, it was district-wide. So all of us worked together, and that continued on through the school year. Being able to email Matt every once in a while and say, hey, what about this, was really very helpful.
Having access to the summer courses that are sponsored in part by Portland Metro STEM Partnership and were developed with Bradford Hill and Joe Masika and Caitlin Everett, those classes are really an opportunity for teachers to delve in and for districts and building administrators to invest in their teachers by allowing them to attend those classes. I think really shows that they're behind what's going on here or what was trying to happen here.
Having time to collaborate throughout the school year it's extremely essential. At Forest Grove, we have a Wednesday late start every other Wednesday, and so that's when Charlotte and I and our other teachers do most of our collaboration time, but I know other schools have common prep periods. There needs to be some way for teachers. I mean, Charlotte and I go above and beyond. I mean, we meet every day. But, that Wednesday of having an hour every other week was really essential to building assessments and doing things that we needed to do more long-term.
I would just say at my school we have common prep periods, and we also teach the course at the same time. And so there's a lot of times that we will set up a lab together to save time, just logistics that have been thought through before of ways that we can get to work together to save us time. Is something that administration has done a really great job of doing, is scheduling that time for us to be together.
So having somebody at the school who is like a leader and knows all about the program is definitely helpful.
At the trainings, what we try to do is we try to get teachers to be like the students, live the curriculum. And so we will go through a good chunk of the year together in the training so that teachers can learn what it feels like to be a student, to struggle with the ideas, to talk with each other, to analyze data, to take that data and make a prediction with it. And doing that as well as taking on the engineering aspects, is trying those projects out for your own, and making that time relevant to teachers is something that I think we find really important in the training.